Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. Today we have one more hand from 5-10 No Limit, and we're going to keep the cards face down here, but we'll just generally talk about what is going on. So our opponent in this hand is the same hand from the previous 2 weeks, or 2 hands here at PokerNews.com, who is very, very splashy. The player in the big blind here. If our opponent's very splashy, he is really getting after it. So I'm not going to say he's just super nitty or only splashy in a calling manner, but he is pretty active, right? All right, so here we see the player, we raise the button with our range, and now the big blind calls. Flop comes king, 5-3, and he leads for almost the size of the pot. So right off the bat, what are we thinking about a splashy player's range who's maybe getting a little bit flustered? This is going to be mostly, in my opinion, a lot of draws and a lot of marginal made hands. So what are the draws? Well, they're not very good, right? They're 6-4, 4-2, ace-4, and ace-2. Maybe he has hands like 7-6, but 7-6 and 7-4, but that's about it. So if that's his range, what should I do right here immediately? Well, first we want to ask ourselves, if we have a garbage hand like 8-7, will our opponent ever fold if we raise? Some players will fold immediately if we raise, and some players will never fold if we raise. So if we have garbage right now, and we think the opponent's range is mostly draws, we should probably float here or raise, one of the two. And when we float, we're floating the flop, floating the turn, and maybe even making a river raise. I know that seems optimistic with 8-7, but if that's what the opponent's doing, it's a pretty great play. If we have a king, or a 5, or a 3, or any other pair, I think we have a pretty easy call, because while we would like to protect against the various draws, it's pretty obvious which cards are bad for me. So I think we have a pretty easy call with those hands. So with our garbage, I think we either need to raise or call. With our decently strong marginal hands, medium strength hands, we definitely need to call. And so what hands do we want to raise here? I would probably say not very many. I mean, if we have a set, we want to keep the guy bluffing. So I definitely like calling with a lot of stuff. So when I call here, it's kind of tough to know what I'm doing. I could have total garbage. We could have the draws, etc., etc. Now, things get interesting. Turn to 10 of diamonds, and our opponent now bets $350. You may ask, why can you not, or how can we discount pocket 5s and pocket 3s, or king 5 that's just blasting it and trying to get money in the pot? Well, our opponent could have that, and that's what's important to realize, is that sometimes we're just going to be beat here whenever we have, ace-king or pocket aces. Sometimes we just lose, right? And when you do lose, that's fine, but you want to make sure you play your hand in a manner that keeps your opponent bluffing, assuming you have a medium strength hand. So anyway, my opponent blasted on the turn. What am I going to do? Well, if I have a king, I'm clearly never folding. If I have a 10, I'm definitely not folding either. If I have ace-5, we're probably calling again on the turn and calling on a lot of rivers, as nasty as that is. And a 3, I think, is close enough to call as well. So we're calling a lot. If I had the 8-7 offsuit now, we're just going to fold. Maybe it'd be a pretty sweet play to shove if we think the opponent's range is all draws, because, 8 high is good against all the draws. But at this point, when the guy blasted, I'm just getting out of the way. I don't think you need to continue with all the garbage. So the guy gets you whenever he has the garbage. I call. Clearly, I have something. I have a pair, at least. River's a 7, which is not the ideal card. I would much prefer it to be any card besides an ace, a 7, a 6, a 4, or 2. Those are all particularly bad. But now my opponent bets 700. A little bit less than the size of the pot, almost my entire stack. It's kind of interesting that he chose 700. You'll see this in cash games way more often than tournaments. Usually people don't leave their opponent with just a few big blinds behind. But that happens in cash games all the time. I think because people just don't understand how much money their opponents have in front of them. But, yeah, so now if I have a 10, like I just told you, I'm calling with a 10 for sure. If I have a king, I'm calling for sure. It's a little bit unnerving that 7-6 gets there. That's certainly a hand my opponent could have. Also, well, mainly 7-6. And so the question is, will he bet with 7-6 on the river like this? And I don't know. Some people just go bet, bet, bet. Like, they don't even think about what cards could come. They just go bet, 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 and that's just how they're going to roll. And if he's going to bet stuff like 7-6 and 8-7, then you should be way less inclined to call with a 5 or a 3. But we're clearly in call down mode here against a lot of players. And I would find a pretty big call in a spot with a lot of hands. So I don't know if I call or fold here, but given what I just told you, I would be shocked if I fold here. So clearly, if my opponent knows what I'm doing, he should only be value betting here on this river, because whenever he 2x pots the turn, I must have a very good hand, or at least a hand I'm not folding, right? So if I have a hand I'm probably not folding, and my opponent's still betting, well, that should actually lead me to fold a lot if I think my opponent's good and aware of my strategy. But clearly, my adjustments here are assuming my opponent does not know my strategy. I think my opponent's messing up. So I'm actually going to look him up here quite wide. But as you can see, we are wide open for being exploited in this scenario, because if my opponent knows what we're doing, he just should only value bet. And if he is value betting, what should he value bet with? Probably like ace 10 or better. I think that's reasonable. Like I said, I'm probably going to call the 7, a 5, or a 3. So if I'm calling with all of those, I think ace 10 is probably good enough to value bet. Clearly, he still loses to all the kings, but that's fine because he also beats all these other hands they can call. So anyway, that's what I'm doing here. I do call because that's clearly I'm calling. And we have king jack, so top pair, marginal kicker, and our opponent just throws his cards right in the muck. It's always nice when that works out. This kind of thing doesn't come up too often in tournaments, but it does happen all the time in small and medium stakes cash games. If you've not already, checked out my new book, Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. You can get it at jonathanlittlepoker.com/mastering. And we discuss situations like this. Like, how do you play against some guy who's just blasting you? It's hard. I mean, I understand that a lot of people want to know they have the best hand, but that's not really how poker works. I mean, when someone's blasting it, you have to take whatever reasonably decent spot you can get and be very happy with it. I was actually playing a charity tournament the other day, and after the charity tournament, there was a 5-10 no limit game. So I played against 3 or 4 people, and one guy there was playing almost blind or looking at one hand. He was just blasting it, right? There was a lady next to me, actually, and she lost pretty much every hand. It was pretty unfortunate for her, to the guy who's playing every pot. And then towards the end of the day, I had top pair bad kicker. I think I had like ace 7 on the board of something like ace 9, 8, 6, 3 or something like that. And we ended up getting it all in for something like $2,000. My opponent just had nothing, just stone nothing. And, you know, if you're afraid to call on those spots, looking for spots where you really do clearly have the best hand, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. And this hand's a good example of that, as is that $5, $10 no limit charity tournament game hand. So don't be afraid to make big calls against players who are likely to be going off. That's going to be it for this episode here on Poker News for this hand analysis. If you like this, let the people at Poker News know. And I will be back next time with another fun poker hand. Thanks for watching.